Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session, Building Sustainable Career Pathways in Partnership with Key Stakeholders. My name is Valerie. This is Ariel, Vanessa, and Hunter. We're from Collier County in Naples, Florida. We serve about 3,000 students a year, primarily ED. Naples is an interesting county. We have about I would say 500 to 700 students in our the rural area of Immokalee, and the rest served through the Naples area. So today we're very excited to share our journey with IET programs. We have a lot to tell you. We have videos to share with you, but we also want to hear from you in the room. So we're asking each of you to participate as much as possible.
Just some housekeeping. For those of you that are online, feel free to put your questions in the chat. For those of you in the audience, we're going to ask you to use your phones for some QR codes just to be able to respond to some surveys and polls and also chat with each other. Anything else with housekeeping? If you have questions in the audience, we do want to hear from you. So what we're asking you to do is to raise your hand, let us know. We might either have to repeat the question or come with the microphone to you so our folks online can hear it as well. With that said.
Yes, welcome. We're ready to get started.
So this is our first QR code. So please tell us a little bit more about who you all are. And I'm going to put this QR code up again in a second. So if you don't catch from you as much as possible. So I'm just going to show it again.
So this should be opening a little survey, 2 questions. One asking you about what programs you have or offer in terms of IET. And then the second one also asking about where you are in creating IET programs or career pathway programs. And then as you're going through this, I'll keep talking, fill up the dead air. I have that ability. I'm full of hot air. And that is what you're doing right now is very similar to what we ask our students to do. We survey them a lot, asking them questions, getting a feel from them easily. This collects it. This allows us to collect the information they provide to us in a very succinct Excel document and allows us to kind of better gauge where they are, who they are, what their needs are, so that we can provide wraparound services. And we'll talk more in depth as we come up to that. Thank you.
And online hear us now, or are they able to hear us now or no?
Is it picking up anything in the microphone?
Checking the sound for our online audience.
Yeah.
This one was, nope. We've tried a few. Is this one working? This one? Okay. Great. Yes.
I'll let you continue.
Okay, so as you can see, hopefully now you can hear me too online. Here are some of the results as they come in. You can see where most of the room is. Most of the room, about half anyway, has several IET programs. Feel like you're doing well with most of them. However, we can always learn something new, and that includes us. So we hope that you all share some of your best practices with us as well today. Some of you have some experience with at least one IET and are looking to expand. And then some of you are still in the planning process or have not yet started an IET. Everyone can hear me okay now? And then here are the other question that you have, which is what types of stakeholders are you working with on your IET programs? And we can see, of course, as many as options as possible is great. Students, number 1, teachers and instructors, and then we have employers and workforce organizations with the next, and then industry partners and other educational institutions. Great to know.
Hopefully Hopefully, we'll be touching upon some of those partnerships as well throughout the presentation and which programs might lead to different partnerships, and we'll highlight some of those. Where are we going?
Moving forward.
So our session goals. So today we will share about our relationship with our stakeholders and how they have shaped the nature and the development of our own IET programs. You will see real world examples of how you can also take some tips that we share and bring strategies that reduce student barriers and ensure program success. And what I think we like when we go to attend conferences, at the end of this, you will leave with resources that you can use and implement in your own programs.
So for those of all of you who came in, I gave you a little piece of paper on there. There was a QR code. That QR code leads you to the resource file that you should be able to open up, download, tweak, modify however you like best. For those of you online, I think Hunter's going to be placing that in the chat, the link in the chat in a little bit.
So all the surveys, all the forms that we use, you have the templates that you can take with you in your programs.
If for some reason you didn't get a handout because we only had so many, we're going to have the QR code again at the end of the presentation.
So talking about career pathways. So we've got a couple of career pathways. I've touched base with a couple of you. I know there's a lot of amazing IETs that you're currently doing, everything from CDLs to healthcare pathways. So we kind of highlighted one here. We highlighted two. And when we talk about pathways, we typically talk about a roadmap of where our students should start, what options are available, what is the end goal for them to come into our IETs, what is it that once they find employment or continue on to education, what's those long-term goals? So a lot of what we do is trying to highlight for the students to understand that it doesn't end with where we're starting right now. There actually is a pathway, there is a continuum there. So this is a typical one for career, a healthcare pathway. We start with an intro into healthcare because many of our students we serve, Valerie said about 80% of our students come from other countries where a nurse is a nurse. But when we come to the United States, a nurse is not just a nurse. There is a nursing assistant, there's a home health aide, there's practical nursing, there's RN, there's a bachelor's in nursing. So it's a very different world here. And so we try to help our students understand. And so we start with an intro to healthcare of exploring the different pathways, exploring the different roles in nursing, moving then into maybe nursing assistant afterwards, leading them to a career and a job in healthcare. But the path doesn't end there because hopefully if we planted the seeds right, if we built them up correctly, they're going to continue on to technical training to come back around from nursing assistant to a PN perhaps, and then continue on from there. So that's in a perfect world. Vanessa, you want to lead this one?
And then our Parapro program, for those of you that don't have Parapros, you might call them something different. They're assistants in the classroom. The general career pathway that we have for Parapro is they start in the class, they get employment as a Parapro. We are trying to help them move on to a college or four-year degree. Some of them may have started, but need to complete, and some have never started. And then they will become a teacher if they can go through that four-year program. However, we know that pathways don't always go exactly as planned.
And oftentimes they look like this. That's my view from the hotel window, by the way. How many of you have the same view? Yeah, okay. I paid extra for that. I'll let you shake that.
So we're going to hear from Helen. She's one of our former Parapro students about her career pathway. So you can see that hers was not exactly linear either.
My name is Helen Uribarri. I take the Parapro class in May. In my country, Venezuela, I did 5 years in my degree in accounting. I work in my country like in a accounting office. My son started school in 2018, and the teacher sent an email to each parent to be a volunteering. You know what? I have time at home, so I apply and I start volunteering one day each week. I was so excited when I passed my Parapro test, and I went with my result to the school, my children's school, I said, you know what, I have my paraprostate here. I want to know if you have a job available. And fortunately, they told me that they have a job available for me. This job is, you just need the parapro test. But when I have my degree transcripts ready, I can give to the district and they give me I don't know, more salary. I don't know for my transcript. I'm planning to. There is a program in the Fort Myers University gives you the certificate that you can teach like a teacher. I'm planning to do that.
So Helen already went to the university, right? University was actually her first step, not her third step, but it was in something completely different. And in Florida, you can get temporary certification as a teacher no matter what your college degree is in. And Helen now has that ability to go through that pathway. So she started with university, went through our class. Now she's employed. She's not yet ready in her own confidence to move on to being a teacher, and she's happy being a parapro, but she knows that she has the option to become a teacher.
Good
Yes,
question.
we have a question.
Was her college in her home country?
Correct. So in Venezuela, she has a 4-year degree, or maybe 5 years, she said. And so we are now trying to be much more proactive and encouraging our students to get their degrees evaluated as soon as possible. There are some things that we've learned along the way, especially me, like I wasn't aware of the temporary certification process at the time. And now we're able to kind of fast pass our students a little bit into that 4-year teaching program. For a lot of them, it's just the confidence in English first. So a lot of them start as parapros for that reason. We have a couple questions.
Okay, so you had her transcript from her home country translated over to the US, and did that translated and evaluated? Yeah, well, we say equivocated.
Oh, where's the?
We say equivocated.
Yeah. So yes, so to clarify, if you're online, so we had a question about how that works with transcripts, and then Valerie was kind of explaining to you. So basically, they're translated first from their home language to English, and then they become evaluated credit to credit. Does it transfer to the United States? So I know there's a lot of sessions on professionals and how we can help transition them. So you might want to also tag on to some of those. I have them on my list, for example. But basically, we don't need to be holding our students back. English is important, of course, but we want to move them as quickly as possible into those teaching careers.
So online, or on the screen, there's the visual of what we were talking about before, the parapro pathway, but Helen started differently. And in her pathway, she had already come with her degree from her country, and instead she brought it with her, came into the parapro class, not that she needed to really understand math and reading, but really because we wanted to help her understand the role of the parapro in the workforce. And what does that mean to working with teachers and working with students, so that then she could put her foot in the door and interview for that position, be able to speak to those roles. Now, there was a question.
So our program is a new program with ESOL just this year. What NRS levels are you allowing into these classes?
Okay, so it really varies from program to program. For parapro, just as an example, and this may not translate to everyone's programs exactly, but they're going to be advanced, the most advanced that we can be with ESOL without being exited. Of course, they can be exited from ESOL, but we also look at their academic scores. We use CASA goals. You might use TAPE. For CASA goals, we're looking for a level 4 on math and reading. The reason being, when they take the test, it's going to be kind of more at a GED level. So we're hoping that level 4 they start out with, by the time they're finished, they get to level 5, hopefully, and then they'll be more successful on the exam. But this is a big but. So Helen, she's not required to take the parapro exam to be a parapro. She has a 4-year degree. If she can get it evaluated successfully, that automatically makes her eligible to be a paraprofessional where we are. So it might be different from where you are. Mm-hmm.
My question was around the parapro class. Are there specific standards you use to design that class, or can you share how that class is designed?
I would
hear a little bit more from the school district side in terms of what that role the parapro is. But in the meantime, we're going to just do a little pause, get ourselves kind of check in with our online folks. But we have a question for you. What career pathways do you have within your programs? And have they changed along the way? And because a big part of hopefully this presentation, what you'll hear from us is we're constantly reevaluating our programs. Are we actually meeting the needs of the students? So not that we're just running them through, but are they getting hired? Are they getting employed? Are they transitioning to workforce training programs? Are they moving on to that pathway? So this is where you'll turn to a neighbor next to you and kind of say hello, greet. We'll give you 1 minute, 60 seconds.
And if you're online, please share in the chat.
So on the map, like with the highway, constantly adjust. Yeah. Because it's not a linear.
Okay, we're gonna regroup a little bit. We'll try to regroup. That's the problem when you give the microphone away. It can't bring everybody back. So we'll try to bring it back.
Okay, we're going to bring it back.
Cannot be successful in it. It's strictly online, and they don't have the dedication, and then those who have completed the program can't pass the test.
So, in summarizing, I think the challenge is ensuring readiness for the certification exam. You had a comment.
I was going to say something similar. I came into our organization about 1.5 years ago, and like everyone else, we went online during COVID, and then they had just stayed there, and we try to be very student-centered, and we were online because students said that's what they wanted to be in. It's more convenient and no transportation or childcare issues, but we were finding that we were having a hard time with student retention and engagement and building those relationships. So we have gone back in person for all of our programming, and it's been much improved in all areas.
Yes, online is wonderful when we want to try to create choice and options and accessibility. However, it's not for everybody. And so the student participating online needs to be committed and have to understand what's expected of them. Absolutely. We've gone through the similar challenges and are still going through some of those challenges. So with that said, any others? We're good? Online? We're all good.
Yeah, we lost online for a second, but we're back. So here are some of our stakeholders, and you, of course, are going to have your own stakeholders as well. These are just some general categories. Of course, students should be our #1 stakeholders in developing an IET program. Our teachers, not just our own teachers, but who are our teacher partners out there. Advisors, instructional coaches, you might have different words for the same role. Industry and employers are also a very important stakeholder. We're going to concentrate a lot on that, as well as students. Colleges and universities can be great partners. They're the ones helping us getting our students going from parapro to a 4-year degree. There's grants out there sometimes that help our students pay for that. And then our workforce programs, such as Career Source for Florida.
Any industries or partners that are missing up there? There's intentionally some missing. Workforce development boards, industry partners. There's I just blanked out. Folk rehab. So we have those.
Nonprofits. Mhm. So we're going to first talk a little bit about our experience with, oh, we have a question?
Our
Elected officials. was
Elected
something that got
officials.
brought up. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So ooh. Okay, bear with me. There we go. Okay, so we are going to be hearing from one of our industry partners for the Parapro program, and that is the one of the managers or director for HR, and that's John Broll is his name, and hopefully this will work for us.
In our local schools, there's a growing demand for dedicated paraprofessionals to support students and educators. As our classrooms become more diverse, schools need trained paraprofessionals to ensure students thrive academically and socially. From special education to bilingual education and general classroom assistance, paraprofessionals are essential in providing individualized instruction, managing classroom behaviors, and helping teachers with day-to-day responsibilities. As an HR professional, we know that the most successful paraprofessionals are those who communicate effectively with both students and teachers. A passion for helping students, being adaptable, and showing empathy and patience are qualities we value the most. To fill this local need, Collier Adult Education is stepping up by providing specialized training programs that lead to paraprofessional certifications. Our programs are designed to give you the tools that you need to succeed. Skills in classroom management, instructional strategies, and effective communication. Through Collier Adult Ed programs, we are not only providing classroom training, but we also offer hands-on experience through partnerships with local schools, giving you a realistic look at the day-to-day responsibilities of a paraprofessional. Upon completion, you'll be equipped to make a meaningful difference in classrooms, all while pursuing a rewarding and impactful career in education. Once you're hired, the journey doesn't stop there. You can continue your education with opportunities to pursue an associate's or a bachelor's degree in education, with support from CCPS through tuition assistance, mentorships, and paraprofessional development. Through career fairs like Grow to Teach and Teach for Collier, we connect you with colleges offering flexible learning options. Whether traditional, hybrid, or fully remote, CCPS is committed to supporting your growth and career advancement, helping you transition into higher roles with greater responsibility. If If you have a passion to make a difference and are ready to grow with us,
Okay, so we're super thankful to John for creating this video for us. We had asked him if he would help us by doing a video, like an interview. And so they took the opportunity to use their communications staff to create not just something for us for our presentation, but they were able to create something for themselves as well to talk about the ParaPro.
Now, you have to admit, that was a really good commercial, wasn't it? Infomercial. And what was great, as an HR representative, he spoke to IET wonderfully, didn't he? The part that you don't know is that conversation only took 2 years in the making. And I work for the school district. And so if it takes that much time internally to understand what IET is and what we're here for in adult education, even though he hires me and I get my paycheck from the superintendent, they don't realize that we are a feeder to their staff, to the school district. So it took 2 years of conversation. So as you look at sustaining, building, growing your IETs, building those relationships, these are conversations that are going to happen again and again and again, because we're kind of the odd duck in education. We don't fit the traditional model. And most employers don't know we exist. And so, and just when you have that relationship, that HR person leaves and you have to start all over again. So it's an ongoing piece, and I share that because that's what we're talking about today.
Move forward for me. So again, our stakeholders, our paraprofessional program, those are our students, our local district human resources, who you just heard from, school administrators. So different schools across the district have influenced our program. We're going to show you that in a bit. And then local colleges and universities. And we have to keep in mind the goal of each of the programs. So for us, ParaPro, the main goals is understanding the role and responsibilities of a ParaPro. That certification exam, unless they have a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree, if they don't pass the test, they're not going to get employed, right? And then so employment, walking them through that process, and then continued education.
And then when we talk about the stakeholders, we're talking about human resources. It's not just John coming in to do a nice infomercial. It's really about detail-oriented. And, but when we created it with a little twist. We were trying to also engage business partners with it. And business partners were interested, they had individuals in lower employed areas that they wanted to upskill and bring up. Problem is, try it
We're
again.
gonna try it.
He does a much better job talking about it.
He's so likable.
Hi, Charles Grease from Lorenzo Walker Technical College, and I've spent some time working with adult ed as well. One of the ideas that was conceived of was to develop a curriculum called Introduction to Manufacturing, which was designed to give students core skills, core knowledge to get placed into an entry-level position inside of manufacturing locally. Businesses and industry in the Naples and Collier area who would be looking to hire people, what skills would get students acknowledged and get them an entry-level position, get them acknowledged and get them hired. So after lots of thought process and working on modules and coming up with ideas, we kind of honed down to language skills, basic math, safety, employability skills, and then also some familiarity with tools. And we try to look at what the commonality of those tools might be, something universally recognized in different industries. We developed some curriculum and then quickly started to look at what of our students looked like per cohort and what that differentiation was, and try to make the level of what we were teaching from that common core section relevant to the students that we had at any given moment. It was a really rewarding experience. One of the things that we decided early on was we weren't sure whether this would be taught virtually or be taught inside of our lab area. And so to that end, we developed a toolbox that could be given to students upon registration. And then if I was teaching on camera or one of the other instructors, we could all have a common set of things that we could measure, that we could look at, that we could use, so that each student would be able to replicate what was being done online in the classroom. And that was really a very innovative idea.
I'm gonna stop him there. But so we were talking in other sessions about online, in person, and it is a struggle to try to teach intro to manufacturing online because there's so much hands-on components. But we did have students that literally couldn't get here, and Charles had great ideas about how we could basically make it a hybrid
even because nobody wants them in our backyard, but they're there. And so having those field trips, having all those components allows for that accessibility of awareness, creating that awareness of what is that industry, what are they looking for, and where do I fit in? Because it wasn't just about putting out a student and getting them a job. It was because, again, we're working at adult education. We work at a foundational level. And so the idea was to put them in a role that or a company that they can grow within. So hopefully we heard that from John Berlow from CCPS HR. We're not trying to just create a para-pro, but really create an individual that wants to grow within the industry of teaching and learning. The same thing with manufacturing. How do we create a pathway for them to grow within? Yes.
So manufacturing is a really diverse field, and it could be biomedical, it can be industrial, Amazon, you name it. How do you prepare? What is your particular area that you prepare students? Do you partner with a specific industry, or is it generic? How does that look?
Great question. So we've partnered with a couple of different ones, and that's the other challenge. They are so spread out. So we were trying to identify what are the commonalities, weight and measurement, attention to detail. Those are the commonalities that the curriculum is based on. In terms of what are those industries, we have everything from airplane component manufacturers in our area to biomedical and ammunition and arms. So, and everything in between, tortillas and hurricane shutters. So that is the world we operate in. And knowing that it's so broad, it's about building those relationships, identifying what they're looking for. Someone over here mentioned that. And how do we get our students ready for that entry level? Because that's what we're focusing on, an entry level. Once they're there at the entry level with their previous education, hopefully they can grow within it. Great question.
So the next stakeholder we want to talk about is our advisors, as well as our general IET team. So advising and personalized support, basically hearing from our students and then doing something about it, is super important to our IETs. In your resources, you're going to see some of these things that we're about to show you. So if you would like to duplicate it or use it, feel free. We like to use student surveys. We use Microsoft in our district, so it's Microsoft, but you can easily put on a Google form and whatnot. We collect information about our students that they voluntarily give us, and then we're able to shape each cohort to whatever that cohort's needs are. And then we're able to help them with goal setting. If we hear about their barriers, we're able to help provide wraparound services, transitioning them to whatever is next based on their goals and their skills and their education, and then following up with those students.
So everybody in here works in adult education in one way or another. So you're collecting a lot of data on your students. You're required to by WIOA. And so because you're collecting all this data, oftentimes that data doesn't make it to the end user, the ones that need it the most. Typically the teacher, the advisor, just goes into a system. And then it gets reported to the state, and we hope something will come of it because we reported it to the state. So what we've done is we know that even within our system, that is just not the most friendly system. And so that's where those student surveys come in. And then I'll let Vanessa kind of lead it to the next screen in terms of, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. You'll see, but trying to get the information that is most critical, both to the teacher, the advisor, and those that support the teacher and advisors.
I think for the sake of time, we can move to the slide.
Question.
Okay, so we're going to.
How are we keeping track of students as they come in, transition, complete, and get employed?
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about what we call student success plans. They're basically shareable spreadsheets. And so I'm going to be showing that in just a few slides, and we can connect back to that. So these are just some examples of survey questions that were asked. This is our current actually, Enter to Healthcare group. It's just a small group of 10 students. This one's online. We've never done it this way, but you know, when sometimes you're in a bind, you adjust. So we have adjusted to online Enter to Healthcare, and this is what our students told us about themselves. So they told us that most of them have a little bit of post-secondary, so a little bit of college or a technical program, but a lot of them do not. They're either high school diploma or they never graduated high school. So we have to adjust to each cohort because 2 years ago, this information looked completely different. We had a bunch of students with 4-year
Who are
degrees.
medical doctors from their country. Yeah.
So we
every-
have to hear their voices and adjust.
Every cohort is different. And we've learned that with the surveys, it really better prepares us to do the class. And the teachers love the feedback.
So hard to see from the back, but if you're looking from the left to the right, so 40% of the students in that cohort had some kind of post-secondary education. 30% had a high school diploma, 20% did not, so just elementary, middle school. 10% had high education. So that kind of gives you a spread. And like Valerie said, just interesting to see what the makeup of the participants are in your class so that you can better meet them where they're at. Because we always like to assume that, we build this fine curriculum of IET, and then we're assuming that we're going to use the same curriculum every semester because they're all adult learners, but we know that the adult learners don't all look the same. So we have to tweak and modify.
So we also ask our students to set their goals. What are your long-term goals? This needs to influence how we teach the program. But just like someone just brought up, at the end of this program, are we moving them towards their goals? How will we know if we don't follow up with them even after the class is over? So that's just an example of intro to healthcare. And then we have a question, I think. Yes, we have shared the survey in our resources. Is that we?
And-
Yes.
And we'll bring it up in a second.
Yes.
You'll see it. Right now, that's kind of a problem. I go to one area to collect information for grants. I'll go to another area when I'm looking for more specifics. So at registration, our students provide a lot of information. That goes into our student management system. I can pull up a generic report from there, big overview picture of our 3,000 students. But then when I want to get a little bit more detailed and personalized, especially when I want to be anecdotal with the grants and give a specific story of a student, then I can come over here and say, this is where this student started, here's where they were going, and this is where they ended up a year, 2 years later.
So Intro to Business Administration is something that we just started, like just this semester. And the reason this class even came about is because we were asking our students and other programs, our healthcare programs, what are their long-term goals? What did they used to do? And over, we had people that had business degrees, advanced business degrees in our CNA program. And we're like, well, why are you here? And they're like, well, I need a job. I'm like, there's jobs here in business. So we realized that we needed to bring an IET for business. And we've already had a really great response from this first cohort. So you can see from them, we have some really high level students in there.
So hard to see in the back. You want to read it?
Yeah, so it's 45% with a 4-year or higher degree, or no, yeah, 4-year degree. 27% have a high school diploma. 18% have an advanced or a master's degree or higher. And then I think 9% is some college. So we have really high level students in this class and some that have their high school diploma. So we have to make sure that we're advocating for both. And then you can see their long-term goals. Most of them is business. Someone wants their CPA certification. That's pretty ambitious. And then we have someone that wants to teach what they learn. So we might employ them in the future.
And you can tell. And you can tell from the responses that they're really plugged in and very specific. One person, I had to Google it, Pro Advisor Certification. Anybody familiar? That's like an advanced QuickBooks certification. So that's what they were looking for. So very specific. Yes?
This done at the start of your class, or is this done at your orientation when they come in to the program and generally and haven't chosen anything yet? When do you take this information?
So good question. And there's a caveat to that. So we have a survey for an information session but we don't collect as detailed information as this. So there's like kind of a catch-22 with that. So the problem is if we're not asking until we've started the class, sometimes we realize that people are in the wrong place. So we try to ask some of these questions in that initial survey and then get into more details when we actually start the class, because we had that problem.
So at orientation, we do orientation for all of our students. So at orientation, we share about our IET programs. So that's the first step. Welcome, 3,000 students, we offer IET. Second step, we direct them to our website to sign up for what we call an information session on an IET. So then we have our CNA, intro to business, manufacturing, everything is listed on the website. And then they answer the first survey telling us basic information, their names, their interests, whether or not they have some background information. And that's for us, we start collecting data. And then the third step is a more detailed survey where we ask them more information about their backgrounds, their goals, their barriers, their challenges, what they're looking for, etc. So it's a really 3-step process.
All right. So this survey is going to
Question?
be in your resources,
Okay.
but this is the survey that I know you can't all see it, so I'll kind of read it off to you. This is a survey we use in the beginning of a cohort. So we ask them, of course, what their name is because they don't necessarily know how to log into Microsoft Office, so we don't necessarily know who they are. We ask them about their highest completed education, and we know that a master's degree is not called a master's degree in other countries, so I've learned how to adjust my language somewhat. We ask them about in their home country, but just because we have so many ESOL learners, what was your profession or job? Or if you attended university, what did you study? Sometimes we have very young people that have not had a real job, so to speak, yet, but they studied something and they might have been in the middle of college. We have a lot of medical students from Haiti that were in the middle of trying to complete their medical degree. So how can we help them? And then, of course, as short-term and long-term goals, because those are two different things. What support do they need? Barriers and obstacles. And then we ask them about what kind of support they currently have. We give them options now. We used to leave it open-ended, and then we realized we need to give them some ideas of what we mean by that. But this will be available on your resources if you want to use it as well.
We have 2.
Yes.
Okay.
So the question is whether we're having success transferring credits from their home countries. Now, I'm just going off of what I'm hearing from students, but yes. So there's accredited programs that we refer them to. And well, there's really one that we tend to refer them to and out of Miami. And for the most part, they have great success in getting their credits transferred. So, okay, so the question was, what program are we using? So for where we are in Florida, we use Joseph Silney and Associates. I think we should start collecting a commission.
It's the same.
It's out of Miami.
Yeah, we know there's like an agency in DC as well. I don't have their names. But your human resources, if you work for a school system, they have you could ask as well, accredited. Okay. But you want to check, Ariel, make sure you check with your local, like definitely, because then you want to know is Joseph Silney for Florida. You know, I know we're using it, but find out from your state what is accessible as well. And I know there's one. in
There's
DC.
another question.
Yes,
Mhm.
question.
Residential students, IAECI, and that's what I was trying to ask earlier. When we get, because we normally have them equivocated before they go into any of our IET classes. So they go to this program that we call Internationally Trained Professional, ITP. They go there, they get their MSG, and then we pay for their equivocation for it to be transferred over for the US, and then they go into one of our.
And that works. You pay for them as well?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
sounds good. That's
nice.
pricey. That's great.
So
Anybody? You had
yeah, we have a nonprofit in our area that sometimes has grant money to help us with that. But they it just depends on what money is out there at the moment. So in our area, we have something called Future Makers. And so for a little while, they had the funds to help us, but it's not always available. So we have learned to be very cautious in telling our students what's available for our support.
And then just to piggyback off of that, you are probably able to write it into some of your grants as well. So that's something to look into. Your Workforce Development Board may be also able to support those initiatives as well. So there's a lot of different agencies, because at the end of the day, we want to put individuals to work, and you can't do it without the certifications or without their education background. Something mindful is before you start investing money, you want to double check. The more you start working with students, you'll start learning what degrees they have, what does it mean? Is it really going to translate, or is it short something? So you'll start learning a little bit more. Did you want to add something, Lori?
Like Ariel's had it as well. Many of us end up hiring these people if we can find a job for them within our own programs. So my clerk that's here as a student ambassador, she was an ESOL student and she sent her stuff. We did it through Miami as well. But we have to be very transparent with them of the cost, because usually the position they're getting at entry level isn't really to the amount of money they have to put out. But the option is, and I know they've talked about it in our state, whether they had a degree in their home country, if they're doing well in their language and where they're at, then they can take the GED in our country, and that can move them forward faster. So you give the options to the student, like Ariel said, because maybe they don't have all the credits and they go through that whole process and then it doesn't transfer.
So that's the other piece, being mindful of the investment is the return on the investment, and better said, will they get their return on investment for putting it in?
Okay, another question, go ahead.
So my question is, so we often focus on ESL or ELL students for IETs, but we know that there's low literacy students that are native language speakers as well. So do you differentiate your courses, your instruction for ELLs versus native language English speakers? And what's been your experience with that?
So yes and no. So they can exist within the same group, the same class, the same cohort, but there does need to be some differentiation within the class. So as an example, our Parapro program, a lot of them are native speakers, but some of them are ESOL learners as well, or ELL learners. So for our ELL learners, we're trying to help them also get qualified for extra time on the Parapro exam, trying to help them with literacy, trying to focus more on that. But also with our ABE learners, we want to make sure that they have the support. Some of them might have learning disabilities. They can also request extra time. So within the same, we have a question from online too. So within the same cohort, we can differentiate that. We do have a lot of ESOL learners compared to ABE in our IET programs, but we do have some of those as well. And what's it? There's a question from online.
Yeah. So we've had success evaluating, but students often struggle with getting licensure. How do you help those students in those processes?
So licensure, the best way to ensure licensure or to sit for that exam is you have to teach to that exam, and you have to prepare them for that exam, because all the wonderful work we did otherwise would have left them short from passing that exam. So it just can't be the wonderful ELL or math and reading. It has to be strategic towards the industry certification that you're working towards. Hopefully that's the best way I can frame it. And I can't sugarcoat it. Test prep, yep, you can call it that, but we have to hit it, and we have to hit it hard. The other thing I was going to add to the question before of how do we differentiate? Well, we treat our classes kind of like maybe any K-12 classroom where students are immersed. You have native-born students working next to newly arrived individuals. What we do though is, you heard before, we all assess our students. We either use ACOSTAS or the TABE. And so that gives us a baseline, and we're bringing them into our IETs at a certain level of readiness. And if they're not there, then we ask them, hey, let's focus on our language a little bit more. We'll be doing this next semester. We'll bring you in when we get to that level. That ensures that regardless if they're ELL or an ABE student, they're working at about the same level.
And I'm glad you said that because that's really what I should have addressed your question as well, is that we're bringing them all kind of in the same level. So we're pre-testing them. We're looking for that ABE level 4 or higher in Parapro, for example. So whether you're originally an English language learner or not, they're all around the same level. They might need different supports though. So those survey results, what do we do with them? Do we just read them and move on? For us, we like to use a shareable spreadsheet, Microsoft, you can use Google. The reason we use the shareable spreadsheet and not just depend on our data, based like focus, is that this is a one shot where we can see all of our information at the same time, all of us. One person could be putting information in while the other person is reading it. And so it's going to include important things about what the students said about themselves, their goals, their background. We put it there because you're not going to remember what they put on their survey. So this is kind of an all-in-one shot. Sure. So across the board, and again, this will be in your resources, so you don't have to memorize any of this, but it's going to have their name, the career or field they used to be involved in, either from their home country or here. Their short and long-term goals, I try to consolidate them, get really creative with how I word it. Any barriers. So these are barriers that we give them as options. They can select as many as they feel exist for them. Their current support, they can check as many as exist for them. A lot of our students say they have supportive families, which is fantastic. And then how do they envision next steps? So that might be things like they might want to know more about how to meet employers and network. So we include those options. They're allowed to say what it is that they're looking from this program. And then we can refer back to make sure that we are, doing right by them in our course.
And somebody asked earlier, how do we follow up with students? So we spend a lot of time with these spreadsheets, and many of us, so the advisors, the teachers, the IET facilitators, the admin team. So then we're able to see the students who need the follow-up, who they are, and then move forward with that.
So you can see this is still part of the same spreadsheet, but this is the measuring success with their information, their date of birth, that sort of thing. When did they get withdrawn? What were their scores and so forth? And then their Parapro test status. And then we update this information as we go on. And then after Parapro is over, this is just an example, I go back and I contact students and we update the information. Some of them have not moved on. Why? So we need to help them do that. Do we have a question? So we only survey them formally once, but it's expected that the teacher is having ongoing conversations with the students. And if something changes, we have a part of the spreadsheet that you can't see right here. That's just notes. And so anything like that that comes up, like this is not for me, I'm going in somewhere else, we put that in the notes so that we know what happened to them.
So really interesting to see like the questions and compare them to what we have, because I've just changed this process this last year on the questions that are being asked of the students. And our students have actually helped us revise it for language they can understand. So I'm curious to see what your survey, like I can't really see it. Right. So thank you.
So many of you are tied. I asked you, you're tied, you offer your programs with a technical college or a college system. And so all of them, if they are accredited, which most likely they are required to maintain data similar to this. Adult education was never required to do this. But we know that in doing so, we can get a better feel of, are we being successful with our students? Are we having the intended outcomes that we wanted with our students? Where are they going? And more importantly, if we're not being successful, what do we need to do next? Or what do we need to do moving forward? And the students are very honest when they're working through the process. Our first cohort, we completed a Parapro. We completed them. They earned their certification. They had a Parapro license in their hand. And then we followed up 6 months later saying, hey, what are you doing with it? Nothing. Well, why not? they just didn't know really what to do next. It was that process of applying online, submitting their application and moving forward. It was either lack of confidence or just unsure in themselves. And so that was an aha where we needed to bring in HR, like I said before.
I'm glad that you said something. We'd love to learn from you as well. So we can always compare surveys and, but yes, our students have changed how we put our surveys together. Yes, question.
Hi, I'm just curious about giving accommodations to students that are identified with learning disabilities.
Yes, go ahead.
What's the process involved? Like, are you catering to those that are already identified? And are there any limitations as far as accommodations?
Right. So this is just specific to our ETS Parapro. They have to self-identify, and then we go through Voc Rehab to, or they go through Voc Rehab to get the documentation they need in order to apply for extended time. So that's just for ETS Parapro. Different certifications will have different requirements. For Parapro, yes, but each. No. No.
Yes.
Yes?
Submitted to the agency.
Okay.
Yeah, the agency determines what accommodation they receive.
Vocational rehab in our case.
Like they may need extra time.
Have different requirements.
Correct. Like we work with Pearson VUE for GED. So we work with ETS currently. And then also one more testing, Prometrics.
And then we'll stop.
Correct. And then we send these forms because they're very specific.
So we're almost out of time. For the interest of time, we're kind of fast forwarding a little bit here, but want to close with a couple things besides the resources, which we're going to put back up there. But the role of marketing is important because not only are you attracting the right participants, but you're reaching out to employers about what you have to offer. So for example, if we're working with Naples Comprehensive Health, our local healthcare program, or a big employer, we're showing them some of the programs that we have available that their employees might be able to take advantage of.
Or when we're working with human resources for the school system, having a flyer, having the information, but more importantly, giving it to them to post on their page. So where they have work with us and start now, having Parapro be large and on their screen there where they can gather the information, apply, which is back and redirect them right back to our website. So making the resources available to those most targeted for those most needed.
And Canva has made all these things super easy. Love Canva. So, and in fact, this presentation's on Canva. So we have copies of our flyers in the resources if you just need some inspiration, or if you just want to see what information we include in our flyers. So that picture up there is also going to be in your resources as well. Okay.
Next steps.
Up to you.
Typically, if we have more time, I like to throw it back to all of you of now that we've talked for a bit, what are your next questions or what are your next steps and how are we on time, Hunter?
Oh, really tight. Go.
3 minutes. So we're going to skip that for the moment, but we'll hang back. If you have questions, you can ask any one of us. But for those